The first time Claire Bennett told me nobody would ever marry her. She said it so quietly that I almost wished I hadn't heard it. We were standing outside a small neighborhood grocery store in Portland, Oregon, with rain tapping against the windows and her 3 children waiting beside her. She had one hand wrapped around a paper bag of groceries, and the other resting gently on her youngest daughter's shoulder. Her smile was there, but it looked tired. Then she lowered her eyes and whispered, "No one marries a widow with 3 kids." I looked at her for a long moment and answered, "They haven't met you. If you believe kindness can heal what life has broken, that hope deserves another chance, and that compassion can change a person's future. Take a moment to like this story. Share it with someone who needs encouragement. Leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel." Sometimes one small act of kindness reminds someone that their story isn't over. My name is Nathan Caldwell, and at the time I was 36, single, and working as the manager of that little grocery store on Hawthorne Street. Claire had been coming in every Saturday for nearly a year. I knew her children by name: Caleb, 11, thoughtful and protective; Hannah, 8, endlessly curious; and little Grace, 5, who carried a stuffed rabbit everywhere she went. Claire always counted her money twice before reaching the register, carefully choosing what her family needed, and putting back anything that wasn't absolutely necessary. She never complained. She simply smiled, thanked me, and walked home with her children. I eventually learned that Claire's husband, Marcus, had died unexpectedly 3 years earlier. Since then, she had worked mornings at a bakery, cleaned 2 offices in the evenings, and somehow still found the energy to help Caleb with homework and read bedtime stories to the girls. What struck me most wasn't how much she carried. It was how determined she was never to let her children see her collapse beneath it. One Saturday, a payment at the register wouldn't go through. Claire's face immediately changed. She apologized and began removing items from the bags: milk, apples, bread. A small box of cereal Grace had chosen. She was about to put everything back when I quietly told her the store would cover the difference. She shook her head, embarrassed, but I told her it wasn't charity. It was simply something people did for one another. A few weeks later, the store's refrigerator system failed during a particularly busy weekend. I was overwhelmed, frustrated, and convinced I would be spending the entire night fixing everything alone. Claire happened to be shopping and saw me struggling with boxes. Without being asked, she left her groceries with the children and spent nearly an hour helping me reorganize the shelves. When I thanked her, she shrugged and said, "You've helped us before." It was my turn. That sentence stayed with me. Our friendship grew slowly. There were no grand gestures, only ordinary moments. Coffee after her morning shift, conversations beside the store window, helping Caleb find a used bicycle, listening when Claire talked about Marcus without pretending she had stopped missing him. I never tried to replace the man she had loved. I simply wanted her to know she didn't have to walk through every difficult day alone. Then came the evening when she finally told me why she had kept everyone at a distance. She said people saw 3 children before they saw her. Some men had told her they wanted a fresh start, as though her children were baggage she needed to leave behind. Others had disappeared as soon as they learned she was a widow. Her voice trembled as she admitted that she had begun believing them. I reached across the table and gently placed my hand over hers. "Claire," I said, "your children aren't something someone has to tolerate to love you. They're part of the woman you are, and the woman you are is exactly why I fell in love with you." She stared at me as tears filled her eyes. But I knew words alone wouldn't be enough. So when I eventually asked her to marry me, I didn't get down on one knee in a fancy restaurant. I asked her in the same grocery store where our story had quietly begun. Caleb stood nearby, pretending not to watch. Hannah was holding Grace's hand. Claire looked at me as though she was afraid to believe what was happening. I told her I wasn't asking her to erase her past, forget Marcus, or become someone different. I was asking her to build a future with me, exactly as she was. Months later, we stood together in a small church in Portland. Claire wore a simple ivory dress, and her 3 children stood proudly beside her. When she walked toward me, I realized something important. I hadn't rescued Claire. She had never needed rescuing. She had survived. She had loved. She had raised 3 children with courage. She had kept kindness alive even when life had given her every reason to become bitter. I was simply lucky enough to be invited into the life she had already built. Near the end of the ceremony, Grace slipped her little hand into mine and whispered that I was part of the family now. I smiled through tears and squeezed her hand. And when Claire finally looked at me and smiled, I remembered the woman standing in that grocery store months earlier, believing nobody would ever choose her. She had been wrong. Someone had chosen her, not despite her children, because they were part of her heart. If this story touched something inside you, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe for more stories about love, hope, and the unexpected kindness that can change a life. And before you go, leave a comment telling us this. Do you believe everyone deserves a second chance at love, no matter what they've been through? Because sometimes the person who thinks they are too broken to be loved is simply waiting for someone to see the strength everyone else overlooked. And sometimes, all it takes is one person saying, they haven't met you yet. Eskine. Sauen 19 Doutin.